What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. In this video, I'm going to do a penetration test with my 4570 government lever action rifle. And I'm going to be shooting at some standard 1/2 inch 3-ply southern yellow pine plywood. And the purpose of the test is to see how many sheets of regular 1/2 inch 3-ply southern yellow pine plywood a 4570 can penetrate through. So the ammunition I'm going to use for this test are two very popular loads. Here we have the Hornady LeverEvolution 325 grain flex tip, and this has an advertised muzzle velocity of 2050 feet per second. And I've actually chronographed this ammunition, and I actually get 1,934 feet per second out of my 22-inch barrel. And the other ammunition we're going to test is this Buffalo Bore 380 grain monometal, and this is the deepest penetrating 4570 ammunition that I've tested so far. And this one penetrated through 10 pieces of Douglas fir 2x10 lumber. So this thing is a deep penetrator. So it's going to be interesting to see the difference between this solid monolithic metal bullet and this hollow point. And we're going to compare the results of this test with the results of other plywood penetration tests that I've done with other cartridges, such as the 308 Winchester, 300 Winchester Magnum, 416 Ruger, 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum, and we're going to see how the 4570 stacks up against some of those other powerhouses. So a little bit about the rifle that I'm going to be using for this test. This is my Marlin 1895 4570 government. It has a 22-inch barrel. I have customized this rifle about 12 years ago, and I extended the magazine tube because normally these 22-inch barrel Marlin 1895s, they only come with a 5-round capacity tube. So what I did was I purchased the 1895 Cowboy magazine tube, which is designed for the 26-inch barrel Marlin 1895s, and I had my gunsmith cut it down so it was flush or almost flush with the 22-inch barrel, and now I can hold 8 rounds of 4570 in this magazine tube. I also added this Brockman's winged night sight here. This has a tritium vial. I have a Burris 2 to 7 power handgun scope mounted forward of the receiver for a quick acquisition. And this actually has the electro dot, which Burris doesn't make anymore, but basically it's just a red dot at the intersection of the crosshairs. So it's basically almost like a red dot on 2 power, but I can crank it up to 7 power if I need to shoot, let's say, out to 200 yards. Added the Wild West Guns big loop lever, and I got this Ghost Ring rear sight. And what's really cool about this rifle is this cartridge cuff here made by Mason Leather. I absolutely love this cartridge cuff. It's the best way to carry reloads on a dangerous game rifle because you have your ammunition right on your rifle. You don't have to go fumbling around for a cartridge wallet on your waist, which may be difficult to get to if you're wearing a jacket or you have a backpack. But here you got all your reloads right on your rifle, and just look at how perfectly this cartridge fits in these loops here. Okay, very high quality. Look at the thickness of those loops. And the guy who owns Mason Leather just does a fantastic job with these cartridge cuff carriers. They're just perfectly made to hold the cartridge just right, so it's not too loose and not too tight. And I've had one of these for about 2 years already on my 416 Ruger, and they didn't loosen up at all. They still hold the cartridges, which is good because a lot of the cheap butt cuff cartridge carriers that are made from nylon, they loosen up over time and your cartridges start to fall out. But Mason Leather can also customize these for you and stamp different things on them. Here I have 4570 stamped on it, and I have this elk here stamped on the other side, Mason Leather. All right, and if you want to get yourself one of these cartridge cuff carriers, butt cuff carriers, I have a promo code in the description below this video, and you can get 10% off, which is actually a really good deal. So check out the promo code. It's in the description below this video. I got this elk stamped on here because I do live in Pennsylvania, and the elk is a pretty special animal for Pennsylvania. This rifle has sentimental value for me. This was my first rifle. My dad purchased this rifle for me in 2001, and it is JM stamped, so this is an original Marlin, okay? It's not a Remlin. This is a true Marlin, okay? So we're going to shoot this ammunition at some plywood, see how many sheets of plywood it can penetrate through. And what I do with the plywood is I cut it to 1 foot by 1 foot squares, and then I screw the plywood sheets together, and you get this block here, and I screw all these sheets together, and then I shoot at the plywood. Then I unscrew the plywood to see how many sheets the ammunition penetrated through. So stick around, and I hope you enjoy the video. And at the end of the test, I'm going to recover the bullets. We're going to see what kind of weight retention we got, and I'm going to measure the expansion. All right, guys, so I want to go over the results of the test now. So I took one shot with the Hornady 325 grain flex tip. This is a very popular deer and bear hunting load in the United States. And then here we have the Buffalo Bore 380 grain mono metal. And this is a popular bear hunting and bear protection load, especially in places like Alaska or Idaho and Montana where you have grizzly bears. So the 4570 Buffalo Bore 380 grain mono metal penetrated through 33 sheets of 1/2 inch 3-ply Southern Yellow Pine plywood. 33 sheets, guys. That is just absolutely insane. And just for a comparison to some other cartridges I tested against plywood, the 300 Win Mag with 180 grain solids going at around 2,800 feet per second, can penetrate 38 sheets. So 5 sheets more than the 4570, and that's a solid copper bullet, flat nose, okay? The 416 Ruger elephant gun with Hornady Dangerous Game solids, factory loads, penetrated through 75 sheets, so double what the 4570 could do. That is just absolutely insane. And that just shows you the difference between the 4570, which is a big bore cartridge, and a true big bore cartridge like the 416 Ruger and up. The penetration on those Safari calibers is just incredible. And a 308 with soft points, 150 grain soft points, can penetrate 14 sheets. So that's a lot of penetration, guys. Now the Hornady 325 grain flex tip only penetrated through 12 sheets, guys. That is just not a lot of penetration from a 4570. I was expecting a lot more. And that's actually about the same amount of penetration as a 44 Magnum with 245 grain full metal jackets and a 10 millimeter with 220 grain hard cast bear loads, okay? So the Buffalo Bore 220 grain 10 millimeter heavy outdoorsman hard cast penetrates through 13 sheets, which is one more sheet than this 4570 with 325 grain flex tips. So I want to go through all these sheets of plywood with you one by one so you can see up close the damage that was done. And I also want to recover the bullets and take a closer look at them. So that's what we're going to do right now. All right, guys, so here's the first sheet. Okay, there's the 325 grain flex tip and the 380 grain monometal. These other holes are from a 308 Winchester test that I did, so you can ignore those holes. All right, sheet number 1. Here we have sheet number 2. All right, you can see these two 458 caliber holes here. Not much expansion yet on that Hornady flex tip. Here we have sheet 3. Little bit of expansion there. And there's the 380 grain monometal. Here we have sheet 4. Look at the size of this hole, guys. I can fit my whole index finger through this hole now. Massive amount of expansion. Still a pretty big hole from that 380 grain monometal. And that's one good thing about big bore cartridges, is that even if they don't expand, even if you use a non-expanding bullet, it's still going to leave a huge wound trail, okay? A 458 caliber bullet is literally almost ½ inch in diameter, so even if it doesn't expand at all, you're still going to be cutting a huge wound channel in whatever you're shooting at. Here we have sheet number 5, and now you can really see that Hornady flex tip expanding very rapidly, and this is why it's such a good deer sledgehammer, because it just expands so rapidly. And this would just cause massive bleeding inside of any kind of thin-skinned game. And look at my thumb compared to this hole. I mean, just absolutely massive. Here we have a 12-gauge slug that I shot at this plywood with. And look at the comparison in the holes. I mean, almost the size of that 12-gauge hole there. Okay. Here we have sheet number 6. And this hole is just absolutely massive now. Okay. Sheet number 7. Huge hole there. Check that out, guys. Sheet number 8. Okay, you can see some of the pieces of plywood getting stuck in there. Sheet number 9. Look at this hole. Just absolutely massive compared to my finger. And I have big hands, guys. I'm not a small guy. Sheet number 10. Look at this massive hole there. Absolutely insane. Sheet number 11. And here we have sheet 12, and our bullet is stuck in sheet number 12, okay? You can see a little bit of the jacket material shining. Look at that expansion, guys. I can't wait to pull this thing out so we can get a closer look. But that is just impressive, okay? Look at the size of that bullet compared to my finger. Just absolutely insane. Here we have sheet 13, and even in sheet 13, you can see a pretty big dent in the wood. Here we have sheet number 14. Okay, small dent there. And the 380 grain monometal is still going. Here we have sheet number 15, 380 grain monometal still going. Sheet number 16.
Sheet number 17. Sheet number 18. Sheet number 19.
Sheet number 20. There's the hole right there.
Sheet number 21. Sheet number 22. Sheet 23. Sheet 24.
Sheet 25. There's our hole right there.
Sheet 26. Sheet 27. Sheet 28. Sheet 29.
Sheet number 30. Check that out, guys. It doesn't look like it passed through, but it actually did. It just kind of slipped through. Here we have sheet 31. Okay. Get that nice little hole there. And here we have sheet 32. And you can see the base of that bullet stuck in there. And it's actually poking out the back of sheet 33. And it's holding these two sheets together. Okay, so I'm going to take that out. We're going to take a closer look at it. Here's sheet 34. You can see it left a nice little dent in sheet 34. So I'm going to pull these bullets out now. We're going to take a closer look at them. We're going to weigh them. We're going to measure the expansion. So stay tuned. All right, guys, so I managed to recover the bullets, and here we have the Hornady 325 grain flex tip. And look at that expansion, guys. That is just beautiful expansion. This is just absolutely perfect mushrooming here. Most of the bullet is still intact. That is exactly what you want to see. But look at this bullet here, guys. It's just absolutely massive. It looks like an old musket ball or something. I mean, just crazy expansion here. So let's see what kind of weight retention we have. Just want to check to make sure my scale is zeroed out. I have a 100-gram weight here, and you can see it says 100 grams. So we're going to switch to grains now, and let's weigh this Hornady flex tip. Wow, 316.1 grains. That is impressive. So it only lost 9 grains. That is absolutely impressive for a soft point, actually hollow point bullet traveling at around 1900 feet per second at an impact distance of only 25 yards away. So the impact velocity was probably around 1875 feet per second. So that's impressive, guys. I gotta say I'm impressed, but that doesn't mean that this would necessarily hold up in dangerous game against heavy bones and muscles, but against plywood it held up pretty well. Look at that expansion, guys. 3/4 of an inch of expansion. That is just absolutely crazy. Look at that, 0.86 inches. Wow. That is basically the size of a 12-gauge shotgun slug. I am truly impressed by that expansion. That would definitely put down a deer really quickly. And here we have our 380 grain monometal, and you can see basically 100% weight retention. You can tell just by looking at it. I mean, the nose is completely intact. Look at that. Absolutely perfect. Okay, everything looks good here. So let's weigh it and see what kind of weight retention. Wow, 380 grains on the dot. 100% weight retention. That is absolutely impressive. So that's pretty much it for this test. Let me know what other types of tests you want me to do with the 4570. I have more plywood penetration tests to do. This is just part 1. There's going to be a part 2, a part 3, and possibly a part 4. So stay tuned for those. They're going to be coming out very soon. If you want to check out my other 4570 videos, I have all of my 4570 videos in my 4570 playlist, and I'll leave a link to that playlist at the top right corner of this video. I have my penetration tests, my velocity tests, and anything else you could imagine 4570 related in that playlist. If you want to check out my other plywood penetration tests, check out my plywood penetration tests playlist, and I'll leave a link to that as well in the top right corner of this video. Other than that, major lesson learned here. You definitely do not want to use the 4570 for home defense, because even with this rapidly expanding deer bullet, you're still going to penetrate through 12 sheets of plywood. And most houses have a few sheets of plywood for the interior and exterior walls, plus some sheetrock. So you could possibly penetrate through 2 or 3 houses with this hollow point bullet. And this solid here, you might even penetrate through your whole block, okay? But that's pretty much it, guys. Take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere.